All right. Well, shalom and peace to each and every one of you guys. It has come to my attention that sometimes life is quite difficult to navigate. I don't know whether you've recognized that or not, but it certainly has been something that I've seen. And so the reality is that we all make mistakes, but we're all walking on the same path. We're at that level. If you're walking towards good, let me qualify. So, as things often are, we go around in cycles and we have to struggle and we have to go through things. And inevitably, if we're doing right, then we will come out of even those things. So if you happen to be a person who's in the middle of that, then by all means understand that there is an end and we can have the victory. I've had a kind of a pretty nice little situation, and it seems like it's really helped a couple of different things. And I know I've shared, for those of you who've been with me a little bit, I've shared about what I'm starting to see, the trends, the cycles that are going on with humanity and knowledge and wisdom and all of that stuff. And it just seems to keep getting clearer and deeper. And modern science is the only thing up till this point that has been intelligent enough to be able to deal with the level of intelligence that existed in Sumer. And so I hope that you guys, many of you may ask the question, well, why is Sumer so important? And I can only tell you, and then you have to choose. I mean, most people are probably not going to go spend hundreds of hours researching and looking and reading and studying. So all I can do is try to help people who may not have the time to do that. But it really is quite amazing how many of the different societies and civilizations that have lived, who lived their whole society time from the rise to the fall, using the wisdom of Sumer rewritten in their own language. And so it helped me as we came out of Christianity, because I saw there was too many pieces that didn't make sense, and now I know and understand why. So one of the things, because I know that this has bothered some people, for those of you that I've talked to about the whole God and praying and all of that stuff, well, certainly the context is an internal journey. But I do want you to understand that I have gotten an opportunity to see some stuff that came out of Samaria that talked about a God that wasn't one of the Anunnakis. And this God was all. And I thought it's so funny, because you hear these pieces, and we're reading the Hermeticum tonight. And so Hermes, if you remember the Kabbalion, what does he say? That all and mind and all of those words, folks, are ancient Sumerian concepts. And so many people believe that Trismegistus was actually Thoth from Egypt, who, so I understand, very possibly could have been a scribe from Sumeria. And so Thoth was a Sumerian. And when all of the fall of Sumer happened and the disappearance of all of the Sumerians, I don't know that they necessarily disappeared, but it does appear to me like that the priest and stuff all went into different places, and those things manifested. So anyway, that's a little history you may or may not have wanted or needed, but it will help you to understand. It is quite relevant that we find this in the time in which we live in. I'm not the only one. I've been telling y'all that there's going to be other people. You're going to start hearing about them. And a few nights ago, Greg Braden is coming out now with major things are coming for the world. That's news. But I'm thankful that he is, because certainly he has a much bigger following than I do, and it doesn't matter to me how the knowledge gets out, as long as it does, and maybe it can help people protect themselves. So we're amazing beings, but we're also living in a place that is on a time schedule that has been running for millions of years. and that's not going to alleviate just because we want it to. So I hope that you'll take that and use it and utilize it. We need to love each other, and that's hard to do sometimes. We need to forgive each other, and that's even harder to do sometimes. We need to care about each other, and that's even harder to do than the other, but we still need to do it. And so I just felt kind of like today while I was doing this, I felt like maybe there's something that we can do that will help all of us. And so if you will humor me, if you are, wherever you are, whether you're here, whether you're somewhere else, whatever the case may be, but could we just take a second and if you would just do this right here with me? Anybody who will do this with me, and just give yourself a squeeze. You know, it's really sad, the thing that all of us crave the most is love, and yet the hardest thing to get is love. And so it is a reality that we all live in. We all need it. And sometimes we're not that willing to give it, and sometimes we're also not that willing to receive it. And so I think that applies to part of what the council will ask when it says, what did you take that wasn't given to you? And there's actually a very, very applicable, powerful statement made in that concept. So last night was a full moon. Yesterday was the ending of a 12-year cycle that I've been talking about. There was a relaxing, there was actually some things that went on in there that most people are not aware of spiritually. And then last night with the full moon is the beginning. The planets had moved into alignment, and there was a beginning of the next 12-year cycle. If you woke up today and you didn't notice anything different, then hopefully maybe before we get through the end of the 12 years, you will have experienced a change. But there really was a massive shift that went on last night. I stood outside for 2 hours looking at the amazing moon. It was so beautiful. And on my back porch, it came up through a tree, and then it cleared, and it was a perfect picture frame. It had tree around it on both sides, and this amazing, perfect globe right in the middle of it. I spent 2 hours crying and being thankful to Source and all of those things. So the reason that I said that is that in the Sumerian cosmology, the Anunnakis were gods, but that really confuses us because we think of gods in the way that we were taught in Christianity of gods. And they were gods to humans, but they weren't like that. They had blood, they die, although they live for very, 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 very long times. As we saw in the Atrahasis, one of them, they took and killed him and took his blood. And while there seems to be some real truth to that, and you find that in other narratives, the reality is that now I've found texts that go with that, but they actually amplify that, and that is not what made us divine, was the God's blood. And so what I'm expecting is going to happen with the Sumerian text is we're just going to have to keep going, and as they release them, there's a picture that's going to get painted, and it's going to be amazing and huge. The ultimate wisdom and knowledge that we have ever possessed came from the Anunnakis. And so I hope you guys will be around for that, because those that do and do give it the credence will definitely benefit from it. So, the Corpus Hermeticum, I'm going to finish up. We're in section 3 called the Sacred Sermon. And I want to read into it. It's been a few weeks since we were here because of doing the Atrahasis, but I really felt like that we needed to. You needed to see. The Atrahasis was not Sumerian. The Atrahasis was actually Akkadian. So the Atrahasis is a rewrite of the Sumerian story. Same story, just rewritten by the Akkadians. It's not Sumerian. So it's not as old as the Sumerian story of the flood is. And so Trismegistus says, good can never be distinguished from him, for that God is the same as good. So you can never, the picture, and what that evokes in me is, it's clichéic to us, but actually they're really ancient words. It is true, folks, that God is good. And it is true that God is good all the time. These documents don't disagree. In fact, they started that thought process. And the rest of the immortal ones are nonetheless honored with the name of God. Okay, the immortal ones being talked about, part of them would be the Anunnakis, are honored with the name of God and spoken of as gods. But God is good, not out of courtesy, but out of nature. And so when I say to you that part of the problems of the things that I talked about, and this isn't just for somebody, this is for everybody. We all that have it, yes, I recognize and acknowledge that there are people, it's known, it's written about, it's always been that there are people who do not have a soul. Actually, there are quite a few different classes of people that were created. Some of them have different DNAs, but there's actually some science that's starting to prove there's differences actually in the mind of a specific people. There is an Absolulu, who is actually one who is a seer, who usually was a priest, and he talks to people and he tells people the path that they can't know, and he gets messages from God. And that sounded just like, to me, that sounded like Abraham and Samuel and many, many people that I happen to know who are seers. And so the rest of the immortal ones are nonetheless honored with the name of God and spoken of as gods, but God is good, not out of courtesy, but out of nature. For that God's nature and the good is one. And that, if you can then understand that we have a spark, a divine spark given through Sophia, and I know that's confused some people. Please don't get hung up on things. It's so much information that's going to inundate us before the end of this time phase happens that whatever you think, but every one of those steps that Source brings you to a new level. And so everybody's wanting a pat Christian answer: believe in Jesus, confess your sins, go to the cross, and you're saved. And I'm sorry, reality doesn't even remotely exist in that level. And so everything is about intelligence. Everything is about wisdom and knowledge and thought process and mindfulness and all of those things that humans have been taught in our society not to be. And so if you find this hard, that your brain feels like mush because you had to think, then I'm sorrowful, but that is actually the right path. And so, for that God's nature and the good is one. One is the kind of both, from which all other kinds proceed. So when we talk about our divine spirit, you do have a divine knowledge in you. We have a part of our soul deposit. Part of what makes that up is an opportunity to, even if we don't possess it per se in us, but it is ingrained in the soul, we have an opportunity, some more than others, some calibrated more than others, some only at times that are necessary for Source. And so there is a reality that people come into light, come into power, come into knowledge, come into wisdom, come into downloads for a specific time. Thus, you get the statement that was used in the Bible that this was done for this specific time. And that's when people enlighten. And you can't do that without it being the time. So, but preparation for when it becomes the time is something that all of us should be having a very big desire to do. And so the good is he who gives all things and not receives. God then doth give all things and receive nothing. God then is good, and good is God. So all of that came out of an ancient text that was written about thousands of years before there was a modern, any Christianity, much less. And so the other name of God is Father. Again, because he is that which maketh all, which is why we call him the all, because everything exists in him, and in him everything exists. It's not him living in you. The reality is you are living in him. And he's everywhere. He's here. He's there. He's everywhere. He is. There isn't any place that he isn't. And that isn't really, we kind of get that in a mindset that has to do with the earth. And that's not just the earth, folks. That is the universe. That is thousands and thousands and thousands of planets, potentially thousands of beings all over this whole cosmology called all. And so if you had a picture of a big God in Christianity, folks, that was like a slave compared to who Source is. So what I was trying to get across to people, and I've talked to some, and they were a little confused, that there is no God in the sky. There is no God in the sky because the sky is in God. Everything is all-encompassing. Is he here? Of course he is. Is he good? Yes. Now you know that God is good. But it's not as small as there is a God, and he is everything. And so when you begin to see that, I don't know, right now I'm just inside, I'm bouncing with energy, and it was really an amazing night last night. I felt all kinds of vibrations that were at an intensity I've never experienced before. And I'm sorrowful that everybody didn't get to experience that, but such is the case. The reality of it is that it is only when we begin to recognize that, and I do recognize for myself, that Christianity still affects me negatively almost daily. Maybe you think you've gotten over it. Maybe you aren't even trying to get over it. And if you're not, then you won't. But for those of us that are, you can learn truth and walk and still fight what reality is, which is everything is in all, not all is in everything. And so the other name of God is Father, and again, because he is that which maketh all, the part of the Father is to make. That's what he does. He creates. He is the creator God, if you would. Wherefore, child making is a very great and a most pious thing in life for them who think aright, and to leave life on earth without a child, a very good misfortune, a very great misfortune, and impiety. But he who had no child is punished by the daemonies after death. I don't know about that part. I can't speak to that. I don't intend to speak to that. I can't say that I necessarily think that that's correct, maybe in our modern understanding, but you just have to die and find out for yourself. So, and this is the punishment, that man's soul who hath no child shall be condemned unto a body with neither man nor woman's nature, a thing accursed beneath the sun. And there again, I can't speak to that. I don't know that I believe that that's absolutely the proper interpretation. It doesn't mean that there's not one in there. It just simply means I'm not convinced that that is. Wherefore, Asclepius, let not your sympathies be with the man who hath no child, but rather pity his mishap, knowing what punishment abides for him. Might be true. I don't know. I also will tell you, though, that it seems very prominent to me that that is a concept all based towards a man. I don't see that based towards a woman. So, for whatever that's worth. It may not be worth anything to you. And so, let all that has been said then be to you, Asclepius, an introduction to the gnosis, the knowledge of the nature of all things. The glory of all things is God, Godhead and godly nature. Source of the things that are is God, who is both mind and nature. Yea, matter, the wisdom that reveals all things. Source, too, is Godhead. Yea, nature, energy, necessity, and end, and making new again. All of those are attributes of God. Let all that has been said then be to thee, Asclepius, an introduction to the gnosis of the nature of all things. So at best, most of us probably don't have enough lifetime, unless Source intends to speed things up. We will never get to see these before the conclusion comes, but some might, and it might happen faster than we think. Everything else is. And so the glory of all things is God, Godhead and godly nature. Source of the things that are is God, who is both mind and nature. Yes, matter, the wisdom that reveals all things. Source too is Godhead. Yea, nature, energy, necessity, and end, and making new again. Darkness that knew no bounds was in abyss, and water too, and subtle breath intelligent. These were by the power of God in chaos. Then holy light arose, and they collected neath dry space from out of moist essence elements, and all the gods do separate things out from the focused nature. All things being undefined and yet unwrought, the light things were assigned unto the height, and the heavy things, the ones had their foundations laid down beneath the moist part of the dry space. The universe things being bounded off by fire and hanged in breath to keep them up. So you could get a piece out of that it's really funny. This, for me, it may not resonate with y'all, but for me it was really crazy, because I was standing at the range with my hands in one of my spiritual moments about a month ago, and I just felt like Source said to me as the wind was blowing, and it was hot and it was blowing across me, and Source said that breath is me. It was amazing. I was like, man, my whole day changed after that. So I think that we've really missed a lot of things. I think that we're looking for a lot of fake things when we're looking for spiritual things. And quite honestly, I don't know that we really need to look for anything. It's starting to become my finding that on one version, the less that I look, the more that I'm open to receive. And I think maybe there's a place there where us being open to receive the goodness instead of constantly chasing it. And if that is correct, then that's really a fundamentally mind-boggling encounter, that simply by doing nothing, we stand closer chances to encounter Source than by doing something. And so the darkness that knew no bounds was the abyss. Then holy light arose, and there collected neath dry space from out of moist essence elements, and all the gods do separate things out from fecund nature. All things being undefined and yet unwrought. The light things were assigned unto the height, and the heavy things had their foundation laid beneath the moist part of the dry space. The universal things being bounded off by fire and hanged in breath to keep them up. And heaven was seen in 7 circles. The gods were visible in forms of stars with all of their signs, while nature had her numbers made articulate together with the gods in her, and heaven's periphery revolved in cyclic course, borne on the breath of God. So when I tell you that it really, the concepts and the things that I'm learning in Sumeria actually bring a greater picture, and I recognize that massively, that how the cycles, that's why when I read what the Sumerians have written about the cycle that we're in or fixing to end. So I started a cycle, everybody did, but maybe we're in different places. I started a cycle in intention and knowledge last night, and I know the course of that cycle. It's 12 years. We've started many cycles during the course of our lifetime, and some of those cycles are 1,200 years, some of those cycles are 12,000 years, some of those cycles are 36,000 years, and they're going on all at the same time. You say, well, that's kind of weird. How do we know all that stuff's going on? We know all that stuff's going on because of all that the planets are doing. And that's why it was so important. How did the Sumerians come to Earth with no telescopes and have more knowledge about the planets than our scientists do? The scientists can't explain that, folks. How would you know about stars that you can't see with a telescope? That knowledge came from somewhere. I mean, they told us before we encountered them. They told us about planets that existed. How did that happen? Somewhere, someone saw those planets and knew they were there, or were given through divine inspiration, were given the coordinates, and in many cases, the Sumerians are to within a minute over 25,000 years. Several of the prophecies that are going to manifest in our lifetime were predicted 5,000, 4,000, 3,000 years ago. And we can go and put the coordinates into the computer, and those coordinates pull up a layout of stars. How does that work? How did those people know that? And are they valid? Should we listen to them? What I find is crazy is that people don't want to listen to the Sumerians, and scholars don't want you to listen to the Sumerians, but they have no problems in getting you to believe lies that will destroy you, because you're ignorant as long as you don't look. That's why Zodiac is bad in Christianity. That's why all the people quit watching the stars. Humans had been doing that for hundreds of thousands of years, and all of a sudden in the last 250 years, we don't care what happens in the sky. It's a scam, folks. We're being scammed by our government, by world governments. And so, every god by his own proper power brought forth what was appointed him. So I've been sharing this with people that I talk to. I'm starting to understand, I think, a piece of the Sumerian concept of fate. The Sumerians are the ones who set fate, but fate, in the way that we define it as a general rule of thumb, would be something that's guaranteed to happen. You know, it's fate that you die in this war, or it's fate that you have a car wreck. And I'm not sure that that's the proper interpretation. The one that keeps revealing itself to me is that every situation in our life is known, not by us, but by others. And so we're going to end up in that point. The question is not, are we going to end up there? The question is, what are we going to do when we end up there? And that kind of bears with some of the spiritual stuff about timelines. That no timeline is fixed. No prophecy is fixed. What is written, if it were real in the book of Revelation, there is not a guarantee that that's going to happen. What it is a statement of what's going to happen if humans do such and such. And so that makes a lot of prophecy a whole lot more powerful, and it also explains why so many people have no faith in prophecy, because sometimes prophecies don't work. What if those prophecies are working, but the reality of those prophecies is based on one behavior of a class or a section or a country or a group of humans, and what they do when they get to that place? It's a marker, I believe, will be closer to the truth of what the Sumerians were writing to us. And we have many of those markers that I know of, at least 10 that are going to happen in the next 10 years. So we're going to encounter a lot of fate. The only question is who as humans are we going to be, and what are we going to do when we encounter fate? And so every God has his own power brought forth what was appointed him. And that fits exactly with what I'm saying. Thus, there arose four-footed beasts and creeping things, and those that are in the water dwell, and things with wings, and everything that beareth seed, and grass, and the shoot of every flower, all having inside themselves seed of again becoming. So stop and think about this. If you can allow yourself for a minute to believe that everything has a seed in it, that really speaks pretty large. So, and they selected out of the births of men for gnosis of the works of God, an attestation of the energy of nature, the multitude of men for lordship over all beneath the heaven, and gnosis of its blessings, that they might increase in increasing, and multiply in multitude, and every soul in flesh by the revelation of the cyclic gods. For observation of the marvels of heaven and heaven's gods, revolutions and the works of God and energy of nature, for tokens of its blessings, for gnosis or knowledge of the power of God, that they might know the fates that follow good and evil deeds, and learn the cunning work of all good arts. I have to tell you, I don't know what you get out of that, but man, there is so much more order than we can see going on. If we could really see the picture, you would be amazed at how orderly things really are. We see it from a micro view of humanity, and to us, the earth is large. To beings outside of the earth is just one of many. So, thus there begins their living and their growing wise, according to the fate appointed by the revolution and the cyclic gods, and their decreasing for this end. And there shall be memorials mighty of their handiworks upon the earth, leaving dim trace behind when cycles are renewed. For every birth of flesh and soul, and of the fruit of seed, and every handiwork, though it decay, shall of necessity renew itself, both by the renovation of the gods and by the turning round of nature's rhythmic wheel. For that whereas the Godhead is nature's ever making new again the cosmic mixture, nature herself is also co-established in that Godhead. And so the cup of monad, I don't know how many of you know about monad. Monad is simply another word for all, for source. Monad is the divine, and behind monad is the divine light. When in many situations it's lost from us, but it's actually quite powerful when you cry out to the monad. There's quite a few documents about the monad and the power of our source. That's why I started by saying to you guys, there may not be a God in the way that we think of it, because that God, we've actually made him almost finite, but the reality is quite a bit different, and yet it's kind of similar in that God is all-encompassing and everything is in him. So in that way, I guess you could, a little bit twisted, you could say, well, God is in heaven. Well, no, actually, heaven is in God. And so I know that that may seem petty and it may seem small to some of you, and guys may go away and go, oh, well, that guy, you don't know what he's talking about, and it ain't important. But I'm going to tell you, it will definitely change your mind about some thought processes. If you do, it won't affect you if you don't. But if you do, begin to look at everything that you see and recognize that it exists in God. That God is everything. He created everything. It was by his will. He's a creator. He created the eons, which are the gods that everybody tells you are so horrible. There's many of them. I showed you that in the Gnosis. Yeshua told us that there were many gods. The Bible, if you get outside of Christianity, the Jews know that. Okay? The whole concept of monotheism is also another corruption. It's another concoction concocted by a people to manipulate. My understanding is monotheism was not powerful until after the people came back from Babylon. And because Babylon understood the gods, when they came back, they said, we have to teach our people that there's only one God. So if there's truth to that, then I hate to say it, but that's a really massive corruption. And so Hermes, with reason and logos, not with hands, did the world maker make the universal world, so that thou shouldest think of him as everywhere and every being and ever being. It's kind of difficult to really grab a hold of that with all the human programming that we have. Stop for a minute. If there's somebody sitting next to you, somebody sitting in the same room with you, if it's you and you're by yourself looking at the TV, I would like for you to do one simple little thing for me. And this is gonna be profound if your mind and heart are right. But I would like you, whoever it is that is within your eye view, I would like you to look at them for just a second. And I would like you to, even for a second, try to begin to relate that that's God. It's really, that for some of you, that's going to be almost more than your mind can deal with. That when you look at another human, and I sit in here, I feel ashamed, to be quite honest with you, because I have gotten glimpses of this, and then it goes away with life and struggles and the hard things that we go through. My grandson said, he said, I try to remember those things, and I went, Bubba, the fact that you're trying to remember is a huge blessing, okay? Because we all learn things, and then we forget them, and then we go on, and we don't have the blessing that was intended for us. And that's how people lose their way, because they forgot what truth they had found. Unless they haven't found any truth, and then that's a whole different story. And so, with reason, logos, and not with hands, did the world maker make the universal world, so that thou shouldest think of him as everywhere and ever being, the author of all things, and one and only, who by his will all beings hath created. Folks, he's not talking about humans. When it doesn't not include us, but he's not talking about humans. He's talking about all of those aeons that he created, and then they created humanities and societies in all over these universes. We don't even know how many universes there are. There could be 1,000 universes, and all we live is this one little piece, and it's more than we can even deal with. And so I think oftentimes we live really small thinking it's really big. And to be quite honest with you, this earth is really not that big, perspective-wise. So, the body of him is a thing that no man can touch or see or measure. A body inextensible, like to no other frame. 'Tis neither fire nor water, air or breath. Yet all of them come from it. And so if you could right now, you would just take some time and you would, if you can imagine in your mind just watching, seeing your, whatever metaphoric picture your mind makes of your mind, and however you see that, and you begin to allow that to open, there's no place of stopping. As far as we are capable of dreaming, as far as we are capable of imagining, that's how far the universe is. There is no end. Nobody can tell you how many universes there are because nobody knows. Nobody can tell you how big our universe is because we've only been 40 billion years away from here. What is 100 billion years away from here? What is 500 billion years away from here? It's still source. I don't know about y'all, man. I just got a really, really, really nice feeling. There's expansion that's going on, and the more that you open your mind and begin to believe Him, and the more that things begin to expand, it's not difficult for me at this moment to know and understand that I am a part of all of this. I'm not minuscule, I'm massive. I'm not nothing, I'm something. I'm not the tail, I'm the head. I'm not below, I'm above. Because I am a very piece of all. I don't know about you, I'm about to preach myself happy. So, this body of Him is a thing that no man can touch or see or measure. A body inextensible, like to no other frame. 'Tis neither fire nor water, air nor breath. Yet all of them come from it. So when He said that this wind is my breath on you, that's exactly true. Yet all of them come from it. Now, being good, He willed to consecrate this body to Himself alone, and set its earth in order and adore it. So He's all of this, but there is some reason. Folks, the Sumerians wrote of the hidden God that nobody talks about. Nobody knows, or most people do not know, that the Sumerians knew that there was a God that was higher than them. And they wrote texts about this, and I've got blessed to get to see some of those texts. They were scared of the source, even though they knew to us they were gods. They weren't gods. This whole story is written about them in many other beings that have been created. And so down to earth, He sent the cosmos of this frame divine, man, a life that cannot die and yet a life that dies. And over all other lives and over cosmos too, did man excel by reason of the Logos and the mind. For contemplator of good works did man become. He marveled and did strive to know their author. And just so you know, there's a text that was written by Enki. It was something that he experienced. They stomped the mud, they put the blood with it, they mixed that form, they engineered the actual human, all of the substructures, all of the pieces of us. It took them 8 times to get to us. And on the 8th time, Enki wrote a text about he saw something that he had never seen before. And he could not understand what was inside of a human that was looking back at him. He could not understand how we can receive knowledge that they don't possess. He could not understand how children can see. Here's a really profound piece. It was normal 4,000 plus years ago for children to have dreams into astral plane in their youth. And when I heard that was written by the Sumerians, it took me back to how many children has Source created that intended to be powerful, and their parents beat the imagination out of them. And I don't mean you officially. If you had a child and your child saw people and talked to people and was always off in their imagination, I know lots of people who have kids like that, and they go, "Oh, that little kitty, something's wrong with his head." Folks, that's how children are actually supposed to be. And they receive divine knowledge. They receive downloads from the heavenlies. That was how we originally were. And Enki wrote about it. He said, "I can't explain it. We didn't put that in there." And what they came to is that the essence, and it's funny because Hermes Trismegistus just told you that there was something sent by God down to this earth. And they finally came to the conclusion that clay that they picked up and used to make mankind, that's why the earth is so special. That's why the American Indians talk about Mother Earth and Father Spirit. That is the essence of the picture that the Sumerians created. We have our divine nature, our divine spark came from the earth. It existed in this planet. None of it defies or argues with any of the texts that are written. It just simply is knowledge most of them are not aware of. But Enki wrote about it. He experienced it. He saw it. He practiced it. He tested it. He went through long conversations with many humans that were created, trying to find out what inside of them was divine that wasn't put there by them. All of that is recorded. So we really are a lot more blessed than we think we are. That's sad, but I think it's wonderful because it's coming out now. So down to earth, he sent the cosmos of this frame divine. That validates everything that he wrote. From the cosmos, from source, came to earth our divine. Not in a form, in the earth itself. That's why the American Indians worship Mother Earth so reverently. So, if you can allow yourself to go there, as o'er all other lives and over cosmos too, did man excel by reason of the reason or the logos and the mind. For contemplator of God's work did man become. He marveled and did strive to know their author. And we're still doing that today, folks. It hasn't gone away. People still are looking for God. I talk to people, I see people, I see writings, and people are looking for God more now than they ever have been. I asked someone, they said, "Well, I believe in God," and I said, "Well, what does that mean? And what does the God that you're looking for, what does he look like?" And of course they got offended. Unfortunately, the problem is the offense didn't gain them or benefit them at all. But the knowledge of the questions I was asking would have. And so, reason, logos, indeed, Otat, amongst all men hath he distributed. But mind not yet, not that he grudgeth any, for grudging cometh not from him. And this ties with what the Sumerians were talking about. I have now found that there is actually a scientific trait that they are finding about people who get downloads from source, who have divine knowing, who know things before they happen and they speak them, they come to them. It's quite funny. That actually was given to the people that were given the priesthood during the Sumerians, and they wrote about it. So it's not new. Science is now proving it's true. And so when somebody is a teacher and speaks divine truth that comes, and it is true divine truth, all you have to do is understand that that's an office that they were given for them to fulfill. Doesn't make them any better. Doesn't mean that they don't have to get up and put their pants on the same way. It simply means that is their office, their calling. Now, should they be revered for their wisdom and knowledge? Yes. So, but mine not yet, not that he grudgeth any, for grudging cometh not from him, but hath its place below, within the souls of men who have no mind. So when I've had people get mad at me because I spoke words of truth that came before they knew them, and I spoke it before it happened, and they haven't, it actually explains why that situation occurred. Now that I know that, today is a new revelation, folks. I'm telling you right now, the abundance that's coming in this next 12 years is going to be phenomenal. And I don't know whether that is tied with financial abundance as well. I do have some things that tell me that may very well be the case, but it's going to be an abundance of people who care about finding truth. And so, Tat, why then did God, O Father, not on all bestow a share of mine? He willed, my son, to have it set up in the midst for souls, just as it were a prize, where he had set it up. He filled a mighty cup with it, and he sent it down, joining a herald to it, to whom he gave command to make this proclamation to the hearts of men. Baptize thyself with the cup's baptism. What heart can do so? Thou that hast faith, thou canst ascend to him that hath sent down the cup. Thou that dost know for what thou didst come into being. You say, well, I don't really get what that all means. Here's in a nutshell what it means. The people in our society today that are starting to wake up and recognize that there is something in them, those people partook at whatever level it occurs. Those people partook of the cup that the universe sent down here. It's not an equal opportunity employer, and he's not worried about civil rights. Okay? He distributes as he wills, not as you will. I know lots of people who are trying to make themselves spiritual beings, spiritual gurus, and they're trying to usurp their own will over the will of Source. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. I find that Source speaks more to me, and I have more spiritual things that go on when I simply quit trying to be spiritual. That's why Christianity keeps you in, and you'll never find the truth. Because they keep telling you you have to do these things to be spiritual. Why don't you just focus on doing what's right and let Source worry about what your spiritual journey's to be? If you're not a priest, you're never going to be a priest. You can be a man priest, but you will never be a priest of divine wisdom. You'll never be able to find it because it's not yours. But everybody has a place inside of them. And so he filled the mighty cup with it, and he sent it down, joining a herald to it, to whom he gave command to make this proclamation to the hearts of men. Baptize thyself with the cup's baptism. What heart can do so? What heart can do so? The heart that has faith. If you are struggling with God is, I don't know how that works, but it doesn't sound very good to me. Thou hast faith, thou canst ascend to him. So look at what we have an ancient witness that tells us that everyone who has faith, and I will say this, according to the Bible, Brother Thomas, for those that have been with me for a long time and knew him, Brother Thomas used to constantly, in his Pentecostal Christian church over 40 years, he used to constantly tell people that God has given every man a measure of faith. He wasn't teaching that every man has the same faith. Every man has a different level of faith. What my faith is for what I was put here to do and what your faith is don't necessarily have to be the same. So, thou that hast faith, thou canst ascend to him. All that is necessary for ascension. Do you know how many spiritual people out there are spending tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get people to tell them how to ascend? And all that Source says that you need to do to ascend is simply believe? Wow. I'm telling you, this world is fixing to rock in a way that you guys can't imagine. And it's not going to look like most people think it is. What is coming, this is the greatest message to humanity that is. So, you mean to tell me that if I have faith, I can ascend to the one who sent the cup down? Did y'all read that? Those of you that are reading that, I didn't take that out of context. I didn't embellish it. It says very clear in one simple sentence. Everyone that has faith can ascend to him that sent the faith down in the cup. You must you must immerse yourself in it, which isn't getting in the cup, it's pouring the cup in you. And hath sent down the cup, thou that dost know for what thou didst come into being. So you hear all of the people talking, if you watch anything at all, you constantly are hearing, and I'm watching it starting to fade away because it's not providing enough money for them. You're going to watch a bunch of spiritual businesses that are going to go bankrupt because people are starting to figure out that the crap that they're selling them is not real. And it's already happening, folks. And so there will be disillusionment. Well, I paid those people to fix my chakras and to clear my stuff, and they didn't need to do any of that. All they simply needed to do is believe in the Source who created everything that is. And baptize themselves with the reality that I am. Say that with me, every one of you. Mariana, look at me. Say that with me. I am. And that's good that you said it, but I'll tell you what's a lot better is when you say it because inside of you, you know it. I am. I tell myself that constantly, not because I'm trying to remind myself. It's because every time I do that, I voice to the universe, I recognize who I am. And I am Source. I am light. I am love. I am peace. I am joy. I have a human body that I constantly go to war with. Any of you might experience that ever. Any of you ever struggle with yourself? Any of you ever struggle with your mind? Your mind ever sabotaged you before? Wow. And guys, we are so wonderfully made and powerful and loving and kind and beautiful. The true us. Not this us. Not the human us. It has all kinds of fallacies. The human us. Some days it can't decide what it is, much less what Source is. So, the cup of the monad, what an amazing concept. I love that. Can I have a drink? And so, how does he say that? He says, you baptize yourself. Did you see that? You think that might have shocked some people that thought when they went and got some holy water sprayed on their baby's face and stuck it a little wafer that's probably horrible for your human body? Do you think that they had a concept that the true baptism, which is being told to humanity, only you can do it? And if you do it, and if you believe the truth, you can ascend to the one who sent the cup, which is the monad. I'm sorrowful. This is some of the most beautiful truth that's ever existed. I could never even imagine. I listen to Christianity and people talk, and I'm saddened and repulsed at the same time. But I guarantee you, I have no interest. I can't go back to that and couldn't if I wanted to. Wow. The bondage and the pain and the suffering that we've lived through while we're trying to do what we think is right, what we've been told is right. And so, as many then as understood the herald's writings, tidings, and doused themselves, where must you baptize yourself? Very simple, in your mind. Folks, these are things we all can do. This isn't going somewhere to someone. It's not paying tithes. Honoring someone who cares enough to bring you truth, that's a different story. That's free will. Became partakers in the knowledge, the gnosis. And when they had received the mind, they were made perfect men. I refuse to listen to anyone say that we're not perfect. We're not perfect until we begin to receive the mind. But once we receive the mind, we are perfect. Somebody just stole a kid somewhere. Wow. How beautiful might that be? That I have the power now to baptize myself, to ascend, that's pretty crazy. That's a lot different than the message that's going around the world right now, folks. Is it talking about me being perfection in my human body? No, not at all. That's the piece that Anki was trying to say. I know that you guys are eternal. I know that you guys live forever. The Anunnakis lived a long time, but my understanding is they were not eternal. They might have lived 40,000 years, but they weren't eternal. But they who do not understand the tidings, so if you're struggling a little bit, I don't say impose this on yourself, but you might recognize that there is a price to be paid for not giving this the credence that it deserves. But they who do not understand the tidings, these, since they possess the aid of reason only and not mind. And there's lots of those. There's lots of reasonable people that don't understand the significance of mind. Are ignorant, wherefore they have come into being, and whereby. All of this is about exposing to people how you've come into being and whereby. The senses of such men are like irrational creatures, and as their whole makeup is in their feelings, you don't want to hear the rest of this. Most people are just way too much human. You start telling them that their feelings are not good, and that the universe doesn't care about your feelings, and people get offended because my feelings are the most important thing. How I feel. So the senses of such men are irrational creatures. And as their whole makeup is in their feelings and their impulses, they fall in all appreciation of these things which really are worth wasting their time to think on. Falling into contemplation. So what should we be spending our time thinking on? Not your feelings and who did you wrong. What you should be thinking on is who did you right. And I'm not talking about humans, because humans come and go. I'm talking about our contemplation should be contemplation on the fact of what I am and where I came from. This may be a little higher than most people can deal with, but I'm telling you, you're getting some of the most potent truths that ever existed in humanity. And so, the senses of such people are like irrational creatures, and as their whole makeup is in their feelings and their impulses, they fall in all appreciation of those things which really are worth contemplating. So they spend all their time thinking about what's not important. These center all of their thought upon the pleasures of the body and its appetites, in the belief that for its sake man has come into being. But they have received some portion of God's gift. These, Tat, if we judge by their deeds, this is becoming very prominent, folks. I will tell you one thing that will never lie. It will be people's deeds. If we judge by their deeds, have from death bonds won their release, for they embrace in their own mind all things on the earth. Now, you know where you find that principle also taught? You find it in the Bible. To be carnally minded is death. What Hermes just said is to be carnally minded is death. That's why I say to you, you can't throw the Bible away. But if you know what the Bible says, understanding this stuff is easy. And so, for they embrace in their own mind all things on the earth, things in the heaven, and things above the heaven. What were you taught your whole life that was the whole purpose of life? Was so that you could live and die and then go to where? And before Christianity even existed, they knew that wasn't something that you were supposed to be wasting your time on, because that's not how it works anyways. You don't go up, you go down. That's why they took hell. The place that all people go, they turned it into hell. And then told you need to go somewhere else. Because ancient wisdom knew that that's nonsense. And so, for they embrace in their own minds all things on the earth, things in the heavens, and things above the heavens. If there be aught, and having raised themselves so far, they sight the good, and having sighted it, they look upon their sojourn here as a mischance, and in disdain of all, both things in body and bodiless, they speed their way unto that one and only one. So all of your spiritual focus and all of your physical focus is to go to heaven. God, this is so crazy. Just so you know, folks, all of this existed before the Bible was ever even conceived. This is, Otat, the gnosis of the mind. Visions of things divine. Good knowledge is it, for the cup is God's. Father, I too would be baptized, unless thou first shalt hate the body, son, thou canst not love thyself. Wow. No wonder we have so many unhappy, horrible people, because all they care about is their self. They don't love their self. They hate their self. That's why they indulge their self. So, unless thou shalt first hate thy body, son, thou canst not love thyself. But if thou lovest thyself, thou shalt have mine. And having mine, thou shalt share in the gnosis, the knowledge that is divine. Father, what dost thou mean? So if you don't quite understand, it's okay. Tat didn't either. It is not possible, my son, to give thyself to both. Where does that principle come up? You cannot serve two masters. You cannot love God and mammon. That's exactly where it came up. I mean, to things that perish and to things divine. Foreseeing that existing things are twain, body and bodiless, in which the perishing and the divine are understood. The man who hath the will to choose is left the choice of one or the other, for it can never be both should meet. You cannot serve God and self. And in those souls to whom the choice is left, the waning of the one causes the other's growth to show itself. Now, the choosing of the better not only proves a lot most fair for him who makes the choice, seeing it makes the man a god. And some of you might feel a little strange to hear when I say those things that I am God. But I am. And you are too if you choose that. But if you choose that, then there's a responsibility to that. So it makes the man a god, but also shows his piety or trust or purity towards God. Whereas the choosing of the worse, although it doth destroy the man, it doth only disturb God's harmony to this extent, that as possessions pass by in the middle of the way, without being able to do anything but take the road from others, so do such men move in procession through the world, led by their body's pleasures. This being so, O Tat, what comes from God hath been and will be ours. But that which is dependent on ourselves, let this press onward and have no delay, for it's not God's. This was who are the cause of evil things, preferring them to good. Thou saidst, son, how many are the bodies through which we have to pass? How many are the choirs of daemons? How vast the system of the star courses through which our faith doth lie, to hasten to the one and the only God. For to the good there is no other shore. It hath no bounds, it is without an end. And for itself, it is without beginning too. I always have been and I always will be. There is neither death nor death. This is so I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody in this world is getting any of this, but this just, it drives me. For to the good there is no other shore. It had no bounds. It is without an end. And for itself it is without beginning too. Though unto us it seems to have one. The gnosis. Therefore, to its gnosis is no beginning. Rather is it that the gnosis does afford to us the first beginning of its being known. "13, Marion. Just write that down for me. Wow. Maybe this confused you, and you're not a bad person, folks. This stuff is very deep, but I have to tell you, I got a confirmation word recently that says that there is a rising of people that will rise to this presence. All of this is for a purpose. The pain, the good, the suffering, the bad. The bad is as valuable as the good is. But I do have to tell you that when you begin to open up yourself and begin to realize that there's more to you than you have begun an amazing process. I hope you will continue if you have, and if you haven't, I hope you, whatever it is that causes you, I've always known, I've been looking for what I am right now my whole life. I've known it about myself. I just never knew how to get there. And thank goodness the truth is coming out, and I now know how to get there. It's not what you thought it was. It'll never be what you think it is. And so, peace to each and every one of you. I hope that you guys are blessed. Forgive yourself, but don't do the same things over and over again after you forgive yourself, because that's not real. Forgive yourself, but do what's right. If we could learn to focus on doing what's right, we would have no need to forgive ourselves. We just can't seem to quite get that in order. And so, peace, love, and kindness, namaste. I hope you guys can learn and take this. I hope some of you, maybe who haven't, whoever comes along, Source will bring them. I already know that that's in the process. There will be many people who will listen to these words before it's over with. I don't know how, and I don't know when. I don't care. I'm going to continue to speak the truth. Peace and shalom to each and every one of you. Namaste.